Greetings, wanderers of the internet. I've decided to do something a little different, a little bit lighter on the editing, and I'm gonna respond to tweets with interesting ideas or arguments. So if you come across any tweets or social media posts with interesting ideas and arguments, feel free to send them my way. And with that said, let's take a look at what we have here today. So, somebody called Thoughtful Faith made an argument. If the future is known infallibly, then it must happen exactly as it is known. If an action must happen exactly as foreknown, then the person performing it cannot do otherwise. If a person cannot do otherwise, then they do not have free will. And conclusion, therefore, if the future is known infallibly, free will does not exist. This appears to be a valid argument. The wording isn't perfectly precise when it comes to keeping the categories consistent, but it's clear enough to get the point across. But that said, here's a cleaner version of the argument I wrote. If the future is known infallibly, then it must happen exactly as it is known. If the future must happen exactly as it is known, then temporal beings cannot act in ways other than those in the future. If temporal beings cannot act in ways other than those in the future, then free will doesn't exist. Conclusion, therefore, if the future is known infallibly, then free will doesn't exist. This version keeps the categories consistent, and this helps with formalizing the argument logically. Here's how we can do that. So A equals the future is known infallibly. B, the future must happen exactly as it is known. Temporal beings cannot act in ways other than those in the future, and D, free will doesn't exist. And with these, then we construct the argument. Premise 1, if A then B. Premise 2, if B then C. Premise 3, if C then D. Therefore, conclusion, if A then D. Simple, right? But what's interesting is that this is actually two arguments compressed into one. Specifically, there are two hypothetical syllogisms here. The first syllogism is if A then B, if B then C, and then we need an intermediate conclusion. Therefore, if A then C, and then we start the second syllogism with the conclusion of the first one. If A then C, if C then D, and the final conclusion, the ultimate conclusion, if A then D. Therefore, if A then D. So, like I said, this is a valid argument. And after adjusting the language to keep the categories consistent, there's nothing wrong with its form. But that leads us to the real question. Is it sound? Are the premises actually true? Is there anything wrong with the content of the argument? And I think so, yes. In particular, I believe premise 3 is false. The idea that having fixed possible ways to act in the future automatically means free will doesn't exist, to me, that doesn't hold up. Of course, um, all of this hinges on how we define free will. And as I understand it, free will is the ability to choose between at least two possible actions, say A and not A. Now, if the future is branched rather than linear, then at each point of bifurcation or trifurcation or whatever many options there are, we're able to freely choose between the available paths. And what counts as available? Minimally, the options that are salient to us in the moment, the ones that come to our mind, and maximally the ones we're actually capable of performing. For example, I can't suddenly choose to fly like a superhero or solve quantum physics equations just because I want to. So, between what we can conceive and what we can realistically do, bounded by our mental and physical limits, a range of options opens up. And from that range, we choose. And again, all of this assumes a branched view of the future. So, even if all those branches already exist and are just waiting for us to arrive there, this doesn't take away our ability to choose which branch to follow. And if we can choose, then we have free will. So, valid argument, but unsound. But what do you think? Do you think there's anything wrong with the argument? Do you think the argument holds up? Um, Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.